What happens when two of the most talked-about women in the world sit across from each other on live television, and one of them refuses to play nice? In just 36 seconds, a simple friendly question explodes into a shocking on-air meltdown that leaves the audience stunned and the studio scrambling. This is the moment everyone would soon be talking about. The moment that proved even the biggest stars can forget where they are and who they're speaking to. And it all happened the day Meghan Markle sat down with Angelina Jolie on The View. The studio was electric that morning. Bright lights, a packed audience, big expectations. Angelina Jolie was guest hosting for the week, poised, thoughtful, and ready for a meaningful conversation about humanitarian work and using fame for good. She had done her homework. She wanted depth. She wanted substance. When Meghan walked onto the stage, the applause was loud and welcoming. She waved, smiled, took her seat, and smoothed out her outfit as millions watched from home. On paper, this should have been a warm, insightful conversation between two women who understood pressure, fame, and global scrutiny. Angelina began gently. She thanked Meghan for coming, noted the challenges they'd both faced in the public eye, and set up what sounded like a thoughtful first question. "So, Meghan," Angelina asked with a warm smile, "you've spoken often about wanting to make a difference in the world. Can you tell us what truly drives that passion for you?" Meghan paused. Her expression tightened. Not reflective, but irritated. "Well, Angelina," she said, "I think the real question is why more people aren't doing what I'm doing. I gave up everything to fight for what's right. Not everyone has that kind of courage." The audience shifted. Angelina held her smile, trying to guide things forward. "I understand," she replied calmly, "and I think many people admire the difficult choices you've made. I'm just curious. What specific causes matter most to you? Where do you see yourself making the biggest impact?" Meghan's voice sharpened. "Where do I see myself making the biggest impact? Angelina, I'm already making the biggest impact. Every time I speak, people listen. I don't need to prove anything to anyone." At the table, the other hosts exchanged uneasy glances. Angelina tried another approach. Thoughtful, grounded, and personal. She spoke about refugee camps she had visited, families she had met, and stories that shaped her humanitarian work. "And I'm wondering," she asked gently, "what hands-on experiences have shaped your perspective?" Meghan let out a short, cold laugh. "Hands-on experiences? My entire life has been a hands-on experience. I've been attacked, scrutinized, torn apart. I don't need to visit a camp to understand suffering. I've lived it." The studio fell silent. Angelina, composed as ever, tried once more to turn the energy toward connection, toward listening, learning, and shared purpose. But Meghan cut her off, her voice rising, her posture tense. "I don't think you understand, Angelina. I am the one teaching. I am the one leading the conversation. People look to me for guidance. I have nothing to justify to anyone." The tension thickened. The control room panicked. The cameras kept rolling. This was live. There would be no edit, no pause, no rescue. And that's when everything truly began to unravel. This was happening in real time. Angelina remained calm. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't lash out. "Meghan, I have never had anything handed to me," she said quietly. "I have worked hard for everything I have. I have made mistakes. I have learned. I have grown. And that is what we all do. None of us have all the answers. That is why conversations like this matter." "Conversations like this?" Meghan repeated, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "This is not a conversation, Angelina. This is an interrogation. You sit there with your perfect image, your perfect career, and you think you can question me. You think you can judge me? I came here to talk about my work, my impact, my truth. And instead you're trying to diminish what I've done." "I'm not trying to diminish anything," Angelina replied, still steady. "I'm asking questions because I am genuinely interested. That is what interviews are. That is what dialogue is. If you feel attacked, that is not my intention." "Your intention," Meghan snapped, rising slightly out of her chair, "is clear. You invited me here to make yourself look better, to show everyone that you're the real humanitarian, and I'm what? A fraud. Someone who doesn't deserve to be taken seriously." The audience gasped. One of the other hosts tried to step in. "Meghan, I don't think that's fair," she said gently. "Angelina has been nothing but respectful." "Respectful?" Meghan shot back. "This is what you call respectful? Questioning everything I say, acting like I need to prove myself to her? I've been disrespected my entire life, and I'm not going to sit here and take it anymore." Angelina lifted a calm hand. "Meghan, please," she said softly. "Let's take a breath. Let's reset. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I would love to hear about your upcoming projects. What you're excited about. Can we do that?" Meghan stared at her in silence. The pause stretched, tense and uncomfortable. Finally, she spoke. "You know what, Angelina? I don't think I need to sit here and be condescended to by someone who thinks she's better than me. I came here in good faith. I came here to share my story. And all you've done is try to tear me down." "Meghan, that's not true," Angelina replied, firmer now but still composed. "I haven't torn you down. I've asked you questions. That's all. If you cannot handle questions, then maybe this is not the right format for you." That was the breaking point. Meghan stood up. She ripped off her microphone and threw it onto the table. "Maybe this isn't the right format for me," she said loudly. "Or maybe you're not the right person to be interviewing me. You sit there acting so humble, so grounded, but you're just as calculated as everyone else in this industry. You wanted me on this show to make yourself look good. Well, I'm not your prop." Angelina stayed seated, still calm. She didn't flinch. "I'm sorry you feel that way. Truly," she said. "I invited you here because I believed we could have a meaningful conversation. I still believe that, if you're willing." "Willing?" Meghan scoffed, grabbing a purse. "I am willing to be treated with respect. I am willing to be heard. But I am not willing to be used. And that is exactly what this is." Producers appeared just off camera, signaling frantically. The hosts at the table looked stunned. Angelina remained composed. "Meghan, no one is using you," she said softly. "But if you need to leave, I respect that decision. I hope you find what you're looking for." "What I'm looking for is basic decency," Meghan fired back. "And clearly I'm not going to find it here." She began walking toward the exit. The cameras followed. The audience sat frozen. Before she reached the door, she turned around. "You know what the problem is with people like you, Angelina," she called out. "You think because you've been doing this longer, you know better. You think you've earned some kind of authority. Well, let me tell you something. My voice matters just as much as yours. My story matters just as much as yours. And I don't need your approval, or anyone else's." Angelina finally rose from her seat and walked to the front of the stage, closing the distance. "Meghan, I have never said your voice doesn't matter," she replied, her voice echoing through the studio. "I have never said your story doesn't matter. In fact, I believe it does. That's why I wanted this conversation. But having a voice means being open to dialogue. It means being willing to engage, not just to lecture." "Lecture?" Meghan snapped, eyes blazing. "You're the one lecturing me. You have been lecturing me this entire time. You think you can teach me something? You think you can guide me? I don't need your guidance. I don't need your wisdom. I am my own person. And I am done pretending to be grateful for scraps of respect." The other hosts stood now, unsure, frozen between panic and disbelief. Producers waved desperately to cut to commercial. But the director let the cameras roll. It was chaos. It was television gold. It was a disaster. Angelina took one calm step closer. "Meghan, I am not giving you scraps of anything," she said, her voice still calm but carrying a sharper edge now. "I am treating you the same way I would treat any guest on this show. With respect, with curiosity, and with an open mind. If that feels like an attack to you, then maybe the issue is not with me. That was it. Meghan's face went red. "How dare you?" she said, her voice trembling with anger. "How dare you suggest that the issue is with me? You have no idea what it's like to be in my position. You have no idea what it's like to have the entire world against you, to have your every move criticized, to have your intentions questioned at every turn. And now you stand there and tell me that the issue is with me? Unbelievable." "I'm not saying the issue is with you," Angelina clarified, her tone still measured. "I'm saying that if you come onto a talk show, you should be prepared to talk, not just make statements, not just defend yourself, but to actually have a conversation. That is what we do here." Meghan laughed, bitter, disbelieving. A conversation? This was never going to be a conversation. This was a setup. You wanted to embarrass me. You wanted to show everyone that I'm difficult, that I'm unreasonable, that I am the problem. Well, congratulations. You got what you wanted. "I did not want this," Angelina said, her voice rising slightly for the first time. "I wanted to have a thoughtful discussion. I wanted to learn from you. I wanted our audience to learn from you. But you came in here with your guard up so high you couldn't even hear what I was asking. You turned every question into an attack. And now you're storming off because you cannot handle the fact that someone asked you to explain yourself." Meghan pointed at her, furious. "Don't you dare tell me what I can and cannot handle." She shot back. "I have handled more than you will ever know. I have survived things that would destroy most people. And I will not stand here and let you belittle me." "I am not belittling you," Angelina said, her frustration finally surfacing. "I am asking you to be accountable. I am asking you to engage. I am asking you to stop hiding behind your victimhood and actually show us who you are. Because right now, all we are seeing is someone who cannot take the slightest bit of pushback." The room froze. Even the crew stopped moving. Meghan stared at Angelina, her chest rising and falling in sharp, angry breaths. For a moment, it looked like she might respond. But instead, she turned on her heel and walked straight for the exit. "Meghan, wait!" one of the other hosts called out. But she didn't stop. The door slammed behind her, the echo cracking through the studio like a gunshot. Angelina stood there for a long moment, watching the door. Then she turned to the camera and drew a slow breath. "Well," she said softly, clearly, "that was not what I expected. I want to apologize to our audience for what just happened. My goal was to have a respectful and insightful conversation. Unfortunately, that did not happen. But I hope we can all take something from this. Communication is hard. Vulnerability is hard. And sometimes we do not get it right." She walked back to the table and sat down. The other hosts joined her, unsure, shaken. Finally, one of them found her voice. "Angelina, you handled that with so much grace," she said. "I don't think anyone could have done better." Angelina shook her head. "I don't know about that," she replied quietly. "I think there is always more we can do to reach people. But sometimes, people are not ready to be reached. And that is okay, too." They finally cut to commercial. The studio erupted with murmurs. The audience buzzed in shock. Producers rushed toward Angelina asking if she was all right. She nodded, assuring them she was fine. When the show returned, they moved on. Lighter topics, easier smiles. But everyone in the building knew the truth. No one would remember anything except that moment. In the control room, phones rang non-stop. Online social media exploded. Everyone had a take. Everyone chose a side. Some said Meghan was out of line. Others insisted she was justified. But one thing was undeniable. Angelina had stayed calm, professional, graceful. She didn't insult. She didn't shout. She didn't break. She asked fair questions. She listened. And when everything fell apart, she owned her part and moved forward. That is what a good host does. That is what a true professional does. And that is why when people look back on this moment, they remember one thing. Angelina Jolie handled it with class. Because at the end of the day, it does not matter how famous you are or how much you have endured. What matters is how you treat people. What matters is whether you can sit down, breathe, and have a conversation without making the entire world orbit around you. And on that day, in that studio, one person understood that, and the other did not. The dressing room door backstage stayed shut. Meghan never returned to the set. She slipped out of the building through a side exit. No apologies, no handshake, no final word. Just silence. Meanwhile, Angelina finished the broadcast with the same calm composure she'd maintained from the very start. She smiled for the audience. She lifted the energy. She thanked viewers for staying with the show. Not once did she insult Meghan. Not once did she gloat, criticize, or try to score points. That is the difference between someone who understands what it means to be in the public eye and someone who is still learning. That is the difference between using a platform to build bridges and using it to build walls. And that is why, when the dust settled and people looked back at what happened, they saw one woman as the hero and the other as the villain. Not because of what was asked, not because of what was said, but because of the refusal to simply engage. It could have been something beautiful. Two women who had both faced adversity could have shared something meaningful, something inspiring. It could have been powerful, but instead, it became a lesson, an unforgettable lesson in how not to handle yourself when the spotlight is on you. A lesson in what happens when ego blocks empathy, when defensiveness smothers dialogue, when listening becomes impossible. Angelina walked off that stage with her head high. She knew she had shown up with honesty and effort. She knew she tried. And sometimes that is all a person can do. You cannot force someone to meet you halfway. You cannot force vulnerability. All you can do is show up with good intentions and hope the other person shows up too. That day only one of them did. The studio slowly emptied. Equipment cases rolled across the floor. The audience whispered to each other as they made their way out, still buzzing with disbelief. And somewhere in two different places, two women were processing the same moment in two very different ways. One was replaying the conversation, wondering how she might have reached further, listened harder, connected deeper. The other was likely convincing herself she had been attacked, that she had been trapped, that she was once again the victim. And that is the saddest part, because when you cannot see your own role in a conflict, when you refuse to take responsibility for even a fraction of the breakdown, you forfeit the opportunity to grow. You shut the door on progress. You silence the possibility of change. Angelina understood this. She had learned it the hard way, through years of bruised moments, humbled pride, and lessons that only life can deliver. She knew that strength is not measured by how loudly you defend yourself, but by how you respond when challenged. And in that moment, she showed the world what strength truly looks like. Patience, grace, and the discipline to stay out of the mud, even when someone is dragging both hands through it. That is the story. That is what happened, and that is why people are still talking about it. Because in a world addicted to outrage, where shouting matches go viral and cruelty gets the clicks, it is rare to witness someone rise above. Angelina did. She rose above. And that is why, when this moment is remembered, she will be remembered as the one who got it.